Hello, your old friend WoodStone's back today, and I'm really excited to be here. Yesterday, I had my youngest son, his two beautiful children, and his beautiful wife visiting, and it was a great time. During the course of the weekend, I had my oldest son and his two beautiful children and his beautiful wife here as well, and it was a lot of fun. And of course, being from the North Woods, we got a particular treat this Sunday past when the Minnesota Vikings snatched defeat from the jaws of the Saints, and we won that game in the last moments of the game. Most exciting game old WoodStone has ever watched. As a really exciting game. Now, the Northwoods send their Vikings all the way across country to the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia. And we'll see how that goes. The Eagles aren't necessarily known for displaying too much love to the other teams when they come in, but it should be a good matchup. Should be a real good matchup. On a little more serious side, some stuff happened last week in the news that I think everybody needs to at least come to grips with. Last week, a person holding the highest office in this land referred to all of Africa, most of Central America, even Eastern Europe, South America. He referred to them as, well, but it was very, very derogatory. Not something that you would say in front of your mother, or something that you would say to your school teacher or your boss, for that matter. Certainly not something you should say to any other person. But he did. Not once, but many times. Well, WoodStone would like to say, with absolutely no confusion, nobody, no place, no group of people should ever be referred to in that manner. We are all interconnected, and we all spring from the same divine source. So it's only fitting that after this tirade, that the next Monday, yesterday, would be Martin Luther King Day. I was a young man in California in the early 60s when civil rights were erupting all over this land, as they should and should have been. And the message that all men were created equal was being carried to the very front of the television cameras, to the very microphones that powered our radios. And people were being forced to look at the terrible way we were treating, our nation was treating, some of the most beautiful members of its society. I can remember the man I called father being very, very confused, angry, because he felt he was being attacked because it was just the way things were. Some people were better than other people, and he shouldn't be made to face that injustice. But it really resonated with me. And while I was a very small boy and didn't really get to say a whole lot about it, I remembered it. I remembered the dignity and the beauty and the courage of these people and their leader, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, a great, great American, certainly deserving of a special day like this. And I think about his wife, Carlotta, who doesn't get very much airtime, if you will. But it was really her who pushed and pushed and pushed Congress and pushed the elected officials and pushed the citizens of this land to come together and recognize her husband. So a lot of the credit, the glory needs to go to Carlotta King, a remarkable woman for sure. So what I thought I would do today is start off with a song by Pete Seeger, I believe, and it's "We Shall Overcome." Now, this song was sung during the marches, and I can remember seeing it on television when the Capitol Mall was filled with what appeared to be millions of people. And while they were mostly black, there was also a lot of white folks there too that understood the injustice that took place in so much of our country. And as things have proven over the years since then, really this injustice has happened all over our country. There is injustice here in the North Woods, I am ashamed to say, and as well as in Birmingham or Mobile, Alabama. So we shall overcome. I'll do my very best, but as you know, WoodStone has no rhythm. His chord changes aren't really good, but I like to think my heart is in the right place. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand someday. Oh, we shall all be free. We shall all be free. We shall all be free someday. day. Oh, we're not afraid. We are not afraid. We are not afraid today. Oh, we shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, we shall overcome someday. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe. Well, that's a great song. Once again, extremely poorly played by myself. But I figure the more I practice, the better I get. At least that's what I'm hoping. And I believe that's the lesson that we should all learn. Please do not think I'm disrespecting these wonderful songs. These are truly the songs that I wish I could play like an angel. And I truthfully mean that. Well, old WoodStone looked for a story today, and unfortunately, WoodStone didn't have in all of his library a book about Martin Luther King. But as that young boy growing up in the fields town of Stockton, California, back in those very early days of the 60s, there was another, a great American that truthfully deserves his own day as well, that I was very familiar with, that I actually shook hands with. And that man was Cesar Chavez. Now, Cesar was also working for people's rights and people to be treated with dignity and respect and with honesty and caring and love. And those people were the migrant workers that were picking the fruit, the grapes in the vineyards around Stockton, California, the tomatoes in the San Joaquin Valley, cutting the asparagus that were in the peat bogs of the San Joaquin River. He was concerned that they weren't getting treated well. These people had no bathrooms to relieve themselves in. They were offered no shade, no water. And if anybody is aware, in California, it can get very, very hot. So the book that I've selected today is a book called Cesar Chavez, and it's Champion and Voice of the Farm Workers. And I don't know why this book. It was part of the. It was given as a gift to the Kennedy Elementary School, but for some reason or other, they determined that they didn't want it. Maybe they had more than one copy. I like to think that because really any book like this should be in the elementary school. And here's a picture of the real man. This is the man I shook hands with. That's Cesar Chavez. A good-looking fella, but he's not extraordinary. He's, he's not Dwayne Johnson good-looking or anything like that. He's just a regular guy. But you can see in his eyes that there's a lot of depth of character and a lot of love. And it says here, for many years, Cesar Chavez was a migrant worker himself, which many traveled from place to place to find work. He knew firsthand the low pay and unsafe working conditions that farmers faced. He wanted to make workers' lives better. So he showed them peaceful ways to get better treatment. He helped them form a union, and he made sure their voices were heard. This is the story of Cesar Chavez. And I'm going to kind of go through it pretty quickly here because I don't want to have my vlog run too long. But it says here that he was born on March the 31st, 1927. Old WoodStone here was born on March the 11th, so we share a birthday month. I like that a lot. He was born in Arizona on his family's farm. His parents had moved from Mexico before Cesar was born. We would call Cesar Chavez today in our country a dreamer, because he was his parents were immigrants. Were they documented or undocumented? We don't know. But Cesar and his 5 brothers and sisters helped work the farm and run the grocery store. Cesar's family spoke English at home, but the children they spoke Spanish at home, but the children learned English at school. Well, he's born in 1927. In 1929, something very big happened in our country, and it was the Great Depression. People lost their jobs. Cesar's parents were some of those people. They couldn't pay their bills. They had to sell their farm and their grocery store, and hoping to find a better life, like many, many, many other people, they got in their vehicle and they drove to California. When Cesar's parents arrived in California, some 250,000 migrant workers were already there. Many of those had lost their farms due to the Depression, due to the hot, dry weather, the Dust Bowl, they called it. They came from states all across the country, the Midwest, the South, the East Coast, the Southwest. Well, Cesar went to school, of course. He was a child. He finished the 8th grade in 1942, and then he quit school to work full-time picking fruit and vegetables in the fields. He needed to make money for his family. Like many other farm workers, he used a short-handled hoe. Now, a short-handled hoe means that these workers had to lean over. Let me show you. This is how they had to stand all day on their feet with this short-handled hoe. Imagine sun up to sundown, how that work was so difficult, so painful. Well, in 1944, when he was old enough, Cesar Chavez joined the Navy. He loved this country, and he went to serve, and he served for 2 years. And when he got back home, like many, many, many other soldiers, he fell in love, and he married Helen Fabella. They had met, quite frankly, in the fields working. And over time, this couple had 8 children. He continued to work in the fields. But when he wasn't in the fields, he went back to his community, and he worked in the community to help the people there in his community. He wanted always to help the farm workers. He felt a kindred and a shared struggle with them. So he listened. Any great leader spends much more time listening to people than to speak. He tried to think of peaceful ways to show other people like you and me and others, especially people like me, old white guys, the problems that farm workers faced. In 1962, I was 12 years old. He started a union, the National Farm Workers Association. He believed that farm owners would listen to the workers if the workers stuck together. In the spring of 1966, I'm 16 years old now, Cesar led thousands of grape workers on a 340-mile march across California, from Southern California all the way to